So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Joe Barrero. I'm the owner of Telecom, which is a converged communications provider here in Austin, Texas. By converged, I mean voice, fax, texting, and video.
Nice. And how long have you been doing that for? How long have you had the company?
So the company's been around probably, I incorporated about 4 years ago, but probably started really operating about almost 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of made you decide to start your own company from that standpoint? And specifically that specific type of company, were you doing that kind of work in the past or?
In a sense. So I ran a nonprofit financial counseling and debt management organization for about 13 years.
Okay.
The company was kind of self-funded based on the debt management programs we did. We did a lot of outreach. But in providing those services, we kind of ran like a small inbound call center.
Okay.
As such, we had a lot of needs. A lot of telephone needs. We paid probably our budget was about $60,000 in telecommunication costs per year. We're a small company.
Sure.
And I would grow frustrated at the cost of the telephone equipment, how little it did for how expensive it was, and the licensing fees. And I come from tech, so I was aware and familiar with the kind of hardware that was being used.
Sure.
And it was like the lowest, worst hardware, the most expensive ticket on earth on it. And it was just a nightmare to use. So from that experience, I remember thinking, well, I'll take a look at open source stuff, and that was a nightmare, and it was really kind of unwieldy. And as bandwidth became more of a commodity, now you can't get less than 200 megabits.
Sure.
It became more of a viable option.
Yeah.
And from there, I started kind of working with some open source software and switches and kind of building my own apps on it, text to voicemail, and a lot of kind of creature comfort business telephone system features with the experience that I had from the past and working in other offices. Okay. So that's kind of where it came from.
Just that the pain point you were having specifically, and wanting to get a solution for your own the company you were working for at that point, and realizing you could provide that same hopefully relief and service to a lot of companies.
Absolutely. And telephone systems are a nightmare to work with. Frankly, the nomenclature is different from provider to provider. If you're not always working with your phone system, so you really kind of, as an IT person, you figure it out, you work on it, and then it stays operating for 6 or 7 or 8 months, and then you forget everything that you did just to go change an extension, and you're almost starting over again.
Sure.
Phone goes down and you're like, I provisioned it a year and a half ago.
Yeah, exactly. It's like losing a password, right? Like you lose a password that you'd had for a year, 2 years, and shoot, what was the password for that? I don't remember.
Yeah,
I set that up
effectively.
a long time ago.
So that's kind of where it comes. So people would, these are the costs. You would pay you'd pay AT&T for either a digital circuit or your phone lines or whatever. You'd pay the long distance or toll-free minutes.
Sure.
And then you'd pay for your phone system. In our case, we would pay, it's called MyTel now, they were Intertel.
Yeah.
So we would pay them $500 a month just in case we ran into trouble or whatever. And they provided the phone equipment. And then we'd have to pay somebody else $150 per call when a phone system would go down, when we needed to reprogram it. It was just a nightmare.
So obviously, if you've been running your business now for about 4 years, and then previously doing that, so obviously technology keeps getting better and better. Has that made some of those headaches a little bit less because everything's done remotely and digital and voice over IP and those kind of things, or has the technology just made it more complicated?
I think it's a little bit of both. Technology is kind of a mixed bag, right? You get your newest iPhone and there's an update or whatever, and it's supposedly better. They've patched it. It's more secure. But generally, with the update comes bugs, apps that don't work. So it is better in the long run, but it always presents new challenges to kind of get past. Yeah.
And when you were thinking, hey, I could provide this service, give this pain relief to other companies and stuff, was starting your own business just the natural course for that? Had you been entrepreneurial in the past? What kind of just prompted you to want to take the leap to actually, hey, I want to start my own business versus just going to work for someone else to provide that service and stuff?
So I've done both. Ever since I was in high school. I mean, I've been programming computers since I was a kid on an Apple II. And so I've been writing my own little software. I did really well in school programming, and then I started making some money doing tutoring. At the time it was called, I think, Word Perfect, where you had to use these kind of archaic dot commands to format things and things like that. And then obviously the Microsoft Office, and then I was working with Novell Networks, and I was making money kind of working as a what I would call the road warrior, the break fix guy, and go fix something and update it. And then I would connect with other contractors, and we had like a little team that would go. And so it kind of grew from there. After that, then I also started working for a spin-off of Andrex Pharmaceutical back in 1996 or 97 called Cyber. They're now called Physicians Online, but that was my first kind of .com era project where I worked there managing a software engineering team for the platform, and kind of architected and worked with the network operations team to build, at that point it was like a $2 to $3 million network operations center in the old IBM Boca Raton campus. And so that's kind of how that started. And that was really nice. So, if I were to talk about what kind of the differences, the benefits between working, a corporate gig versus working for yourself, one is the corporate gig provides a lot more, at least in my experience, maybe it's not for everybody, but in my experience, it was clearly more stable. It was more collaborative, generally speaking. That your next paycheck is coming in.
You have a much larger source of resources to lean on, whether it be people, whether it be money, budgets, again, ideas from people, all those kind of things, where when you're going it alone, or a small company,
the buck stops with you. You are, you're dealing with bookkeeping, you're dealing, so I guess in the other one I was more focused, and there was a sense of kind of leaving the job behind. You'd go on vacation, you were on vacation. But you also answered to people that
didn't always have the same vision as you.
They didn't have the same vision. There was more politics, political, social politics and things like that you don't necessarily deal with when you are kind of an entrepreneur. I mean, you do deal with some of that, but in a different sense.
It's easier to remove yourself in those cases. Usually the politics comes from the clients you have, and their politics or their wants, needs, and desires. And while, again, with a small business, it's not easy to tell a client or customer, no, I'm okay, I'm going to go find another client or customer because that's revenue coming in. It's an option where when you're dealing with your boss at a ABC corporation, it's not, you can't say, no, I'm just going to have another boss. Like at that point, you have to quit your job if you want to.
And I think it's an amazing distinction. I mean, to put it more plainly, it's the difference between saying, this is not the type of customer that I think is right for me, as opposed to, I have to deal with this customer regardless because otherwise my boss is going to be mad. Like, I've got to deal with this customer. And when I was working the corporate gig, my customer effectively were other departments. Marketing departments, product development, change without change orders. I mean, there are a lot of
a lot of hidden people that get involved in those situations from that standpoint. Have you, so from a background part as well too, so have you always been here in Austin, or where did you kind of grow up? What brought you to Austin?
I grew up in South Florida.
The Boca Raton.
I grew up actually in Miami.
The
corporate gig was in Boca Raton. I moved to Palm Beach County. But I lived in South Florida, and I was there until I had my first child. And it became painfully obvious that the schools were very lacking. I mean, on a national scale, they weren't particularly good.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't happy with kind of a lot of the environment. Housing was incredibly expensive.
Sure.
And I was fortunate enough to actually buy a house in South Florida in the mid-90s.
Nice.
I'm sorry, not the mid-90s, the like 2001, 2002. Sorry. And then what I found was nobody else my age with young families could afford a house. Mm-hmm. So I was effectively in these communities that were already older and established, and their children were older. There was no village, so to speak.
Sure.
So we're kind of isolated. We almost moved into like a small, like an apartment or a condo or a townhouse because we felt so disconnected from other young families. Yeah. And then my wife at the time, her family was in Houston, and her father actually had been diagnosed with cancer. Okay. So we decided we would move to Texas, to possibly Houston, and then I visited Austin. I loved it here. I mean, I just loved the community. I was a little cranky about the real estate prices.
Sure.
Compared to Houston.
I was going to say, unfortunately, Austin doesn't have inexpensive real estate. Right now, I'm sure even relative back then, it's definitely more expensive than generally Houston and Dallas and those places are.
It was easily 50% more expensive.
Yeah, which is what we see. Again, typically, if you take really the metropolitan areas as a whole, Austin tends to be that same way versus the other Texas cities.
Yeah, and not knowing anything about Texas, my first introduction is Houston, and sure. I'm like, we could live like millionaires here. We could sell the house and we could just buy a house cash. Yeah. And when I went to Austin, that was very not the case. Yeah. And
when you're not familiar, you're like, well, why? Like, there's no logical reason for that. Right. And then you do if you live here and know the area better. I personally feel like you do understand. Okay, there is a difference between Austin and Dallas, Austin and Houston, and so there is a bit of a reason for the premium. But yeah, for a lot of people moving in, they're like, this doesn't make any sense. Or even people relocating from one of those cities to here will a lot of times be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to sell my property in Dallas and move to Austin. I'd like something similar. Mm-hmm. Well, that similar home again costs 50% more, and so that's can be a bit of a shock to a lot of people.
So I was pretty cranky about it. Yeah. We also there was a housing boom at the time. Mm-hmm. I sold high, and then I came to Austin. I thought I was going to be just flush with cash to buy whatever house. And I couldn't find anything that I could negotiate like at all. Normally in Florida, you negotiate, you average out generally around 8% under asking. Yeah. And we purchased for asking price. And I remember being very uncomfortable with that. Yeah. Like, what have we done? Yeah. And but it worked out. When we moved here, it was 2006. Mm-hmm. The Galleria was a giant mass of dirt. Sure. With earth moving equipment that we would joke would move the dirt from one side to the other constantly for about a year and a half before they started building. Uh-huh. And then it looked like it just went up overnight.
Construction does say it can take some time, but when it happens, it definitely happens. So initially, when you first moved to Austin, you moved out here to the Lake Travis, Lakeway area from that standpoint.
Yeah, we moved into the neighborhood and we immediately loved it. Yeah. So it was a great neighborhood and amazing schools. I can't say enough nice things about the school district. Extremely competitive to my children's chagrin, but it's been fantastic.
Awesome. So. So obviously you were doing some of your small business kind of side small business stuff in Florida as well too. Have you noticed differences between being an entrepreneur or small business owner in Austin and Texas versus Florida from that standpoint at all?
So the financial counseling business that I ran, the nonprofit, really started in Miami, and we actually had a lot of trouble finding semi-skilled workers, just people to answer the phone, do some customer service. They were either really unskilled and terrible, or they, were somewhat skilled, had a little bit more of an educational background, and they wanted $60,000 to $70,000 a year because. So there was like this
big gap.
There's a huge gap in between the, that skill level. Sure. So we really had trouble staffing. That was not the issue when we moved here. We found a lot of people that, that did incredibly well.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, it was easier. It was a little bit tough because we started off in Crystal Mountain over on Cuernavaca and Bee Cave. And so getting people it costs probably a little bit more to get people willing to commute there than had we been closer to downtown. And we actually moved our office closer to downtown off of North Lamar at one point. But the employment pool was much better.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest challenge with running a small business over the last 4 years?
So the biggest, I think, being a solopreneur, where you're kind of the end of means is always really tough. You kind of have to prime this pump of revenue before you can really make it, in my opinion, a real entity.
Sure.
Where you have different departments, different people doing things, where you can take a vacation.
Yeah.
And you're not losing money or losing opportunity, so to speak.
Do you find so basically delegating, being able to delegate some of those things, did you find, was that something that was easy for you or not? Because I know for a lot of entrepreneurs, actually delegating some of the work versus being able to do it themselves can be a bit of a challenge as well.
It is not.
Okay.
So with the other company I started, and there was a lot of ability to delegate. I had a partner, so there was a lot of collaboration in that regard. Whereas I was able to kind of grow the company while he was doing a lot of the operations. This company has been a little bit different. This company is very technical, so there's a lot of programming and system setups and testing and things like that. And I approached it wrong. I mean, I think that's kind of a hard thing to say when one goes into a business. But the one giant mistake I think I made was I treated this business, which is a business-to-business kind of organization, as a business-to-consumer. Because I'm an IT guy, I'm not a sales guy. All of the sales training and background that I have at this point really has more to do with B&I.
Sure.
Using their resources and kind of honestly listening to my peers. So that has been invaluable. But I spent a lot of money, on the internet trying to get leads and this kind of thing to really end up with the world's worst customers.
That's unfortunate.
Yes.
I definitely don't mean to.
Oh, but it was a lesson that I've learned.
And I feel like that's one of the biggest things, right? Obviously, the majority of small businesses fail, and so I think one of the biggest challenges for small businesses is learning from your mistakes as quickly as possible, and also being able to pivot as quickly as possible. Like when you do something that, again, you didn't know any better, that you shouldn't be doing it, this way, not staying stuck in that rut of, well, shoot, I'm just going to keep going and be able to pivot to, hey, owning up to, hey, I made a mistake.
Right.
Make the change, mitigate how much of a time and money is wasted on those mistakes, because I think we all see other businesses and we just think, oh, well, they're doing it right. They don't make the mistakes that I made, but that's not accurate, because any business owner I've talked to has made mistakes, and it's really about just making those changes and getting things back on track from that standpoint.
Yeah. No. And in my world where, system availability is key and all of those things, the biggest mistake has been in the sales and marketing aspect of the business. And I can't say enough nice things about mentoring. I mean, I haven't, I hired a business coach a little bit, just try to get my head around sales and managing sales and goals and that kind of thing. I've shadowed some of my peers from B&I, who I think are just spectacular networkers and salespeople. I mean, you mentioned him in your B&I worksheet as David Sheehan. Yeah. That guy is always on. Everybody knows him. I effectively asked him, hey, would you mind if I shadowed you for like a month?
Sure. Yeah.
And he was like truly gracious about it. He's like, of course.
Yeah.
Come on down.
Exactly. It's rare that you ever have to reinvent the wheel, and so if you can find, again, good mentors, good people that you can take their best practices from, that's a huge benefit to most people from that standpoint. So obviously, again, a wide array of services. Do you have either a favorite or most challenging service that you provide that is really a specific thing you enjoy working with from that standpoint?
So it's rewarding to find kind of solutions. Like everybody's office operates just a little bit differently, and having the platform that is my own, I'm able to customize a lot of little idiosyncratic ways that they want their phones to work.
Sure.
So that's helpful. For instance, a local business here in Lakeway, Ostex Med Spa, they were like, hey, do you guys do integrations? And I'm like, yes. But I didn't want to start just doing integrations blindly for no customer at all.
Sure.
So I'm like, who do you want to integrate with? And he goes, Zoho, can you integrate with them? And between the both of us, we really worked out an amazing workflow that goes through from, capturing a lead on Facebook, going through his Zoho CRM. He automates the text through Telecom. And all of this is tracked where they are pulling analytics to determine how long they can wait before, before the lead kind of starts to go cold.
Cold, yeah.
And that's like 30 minutes. So so when somebody answers that form, a text goes out, hey, would you like, thank you for your, we got your inquiry, would you like to set up an appointment? They say yes. And within 30 minutes, they've got an appointment. Yeah. And that effectively has built,
a big part
been really successful for
the business. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I always like to ask people too, what, if you do get away from work, mentally, physically, all that kind of stuff, what are some of the things in Austin that you enjoy doing from that standpoint for fun?
Oh, so I'm a guy with a lot of hobbies. So right now I'm playing drums. I'm teaching myself to play drums. Okay. I've determined that I probably need a drum teacher.
Okay.
I'm pretty good at keeping a rhythm, but I think I've hit the limit of what I can do. Tuning the drums or things that I'm not good at. But yeah, keeping a rhythm, I'm fine. I've been playing guitar since I was 15. So we have like kind of a little dad garage band that we have in the neighborhood. We do that. I love playing Texas Hold'em. Again, another neighborhood thing that we do, and I'm somewhere in the middle between.
You can make your business losses back with the Texas Hold'em game.
I wouldn't say that. I break even, which is probably better than a lot of people. Yeah. But I'm not at the level of some of my peers either, where they love to go to Vegas and it's like 24/7 Hold'em poker.
Yeah.
Where I left a poker room at like 3 a.m. because I was exhausted and they were still going at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Cool. Do you have a favorite restaurant or a restaurant that you're kind of excited about recently?
Madam M's.
Okay.
I love Madam M's. I love Thai food. I feel like if I want something light, I get one of their salads and it's incredible. I've got like 3 salads I choose from. The Yum Noir, the Yum Green Bean. If I want something nice and heavy and filling, I go for their bankrupt noodle dish, which is also really incredibly tasty but incredibly filling. And then if it's cold and I just want some like what I would like a comfort food,
yeah.
I go with the Penang curry.
Nice.
Yeah. So I feel like I can order from them a
they
distinctly different type of dish.
Sure.
At least 3 or 4 days out of the week.
Nice. That's awesome. Cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come by and chat.
Okay.
If people are looking to get in touch with you, what would be the best ways for them to do that?
You can call me or text me at 512-874-3261.
And are you online or social, those kind of things too?
I am. You can get me through Facebook, Facebook/amptelecom.com. No, just AmpTelecom.
Just AmpTelecom.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And LinkedIn. I'm also on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I appreciate it again.
All right. My pleasure. Thanks.